Well, hello everyone. My name's Ed Nichols. I've been talking to you for quite a few weeks now about our Here and Now listening service, which comes to you from Dunstan Activity Centre. And we've been saying over the weeks, haven't we, that basically sometimes you need a good listening to, and you need an opportunity to talk things off your chest. Now, basically, I believe this service is important to our community. When we get to a point where we just feel, I need to talk and I'm not finding anybody I can talk to, but I need to talk. And because you're not able to talk, perhaps you're getting a bit low, a bit discouraged, feeling a bit hopeless, despairing, and even worse. So it's good to be able to talk and to be listened to. So this service here is about this type of hearing. It's about hearing you when you need to talk. So in an hour session, 55 minutes will be listening to you. And the only interventions the one listening will make is just to get you to speak more. So they may say, tell me a little bit more about that. Explain exactly how you feel about that. So you see, they're just encouraging you to talk, but basically you will be doing all the talking and we will be doing all the listening. It's a listening service. And basically, if you get to a point where you feel, I really need to talk, obviously use your medical centres. They have talking therapies, but sometimes, and this is I think the reason for this service, they're not always able to accommodate you there and then, like immediately. So you see, this service is here and now. So you contact us today and say, I need to talk today, Wednesday. Then Wednesday is when we'll fix up a time to talk to you. Not tomorrow, Thursday, not next week, Tuesday, not 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Sometimes the medical centres can get swamped. I think you should always, if you've got, problems with depression or anything serious, I think you should always involve your medical centres, incidentally. But if you're needing, as I say, if the therapies you need, the talking therapies you need, the listening therapies you need are not there, then you can use our service, this Here and Now service, so that you can talk yourself out and we can listen compassionately. Can I say to you tonight something that's on my heart? I don't think, ultimately, human beings should be seeking counsellors, people to listen to them, particularly when they have friends and family. I mean, I'm just thinking of myself here. I have 4 children, two girls, 2 boys, and I have a wife. Now just imagine every time I've got a problem, I have friends as well, a lot of friends. Just imagine every time I've got a problem or I feel, I need to talk, I go out of my home, away from my wife, away from my children, away from my friends, and find a stranger. Now, I think at times it can be important to speak to a stranger. And I think, sometimes it's somebody who doesn't know you, you can speak easier to. So it does have its advantages. But also, I wonder if you agree with me that it's good to be able to speak to those in your family, among your friends, and perhaps if your children are old enough to understand, with your children too. I don't mean when they're school age children, but perhaps when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, then basically they're old enough to be able to understand if you need to talk. So we're looking at this in 2 ways. First of all, if you need, you cannot find anyone to listen within your family and your friendships, then this service is for you. If you feel it's easier to speak to a stranger than to someone you know, this service is for you. But also, isn't it good if we're thinking of our community and our lives, our home lives, our friendship lives, our work lives, isn't it good to be able to find people who will listen to us compassionately wherever we are? I would think that would be a very special community to live in. I go to work, I'm feeling down, and there's a friend there I can say, I'm just feeling really down today. And sometimes, we just need to get these things off our chest, even when sometimes the thing that's bringing us down isn't that great. The trouble is when we don't get it off our chest, the little thing that is bringing us down is added to the next day if we feel down, and the next day, until eventually the little thing that brought us down is a huge thing. So just imagine going to work and being able to do that. Or having friends who can do that. Did you know, if you think of a friend really is someone obviously you like and who likes you, and you enjoy being with. But a friend is really born for the day of trouble. In the day of trouble, when you're down, when you need to talk, that's where a friend comes into her own or his own. We need friends. And if we are in long-term relationships, the best way to build intimacy in the relationship, closeness, and to find a quality of relationship which is deep and satisfying, is to be able to talk to that person, that husband, that wife, that partner, that fiancé, that girlfriend, that boyfriend. So basically, whilst we're talking about this service, we're also talking about taking listening and speaking into our lives wherever we are, and eventually working at that. Now, I think it takes work. And the first thing I would like to say to you is this. If you think of conflicts in your relationships, often people are most discouraged most of all because of relationships. The quality of our relationships at home, at work, amongst our friends, in our communities determines really how happy we are, because we're basically social creatures. We need each other. No man is an island, no woman is an island. So basically, it's good for us to be able to learn how to deal with problems in our relationships. Sometimes we can call a problem in relationship conflict. In other words, there are two people in the relationship. One person feels threatened, underappreciated, not satisfied, not happy with the other person. It's a conflict. Can I just say to you all who are listening, the first thing I would want to say to you about conflicts is, if you live with people, you can expect to have a conflict. I don't mean you should go looking for them, but it's inevitable, isn't it? That if you think about it, sometimes if you're in the relationship 7 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and so on, basically at some point, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be two people who have a different viewpoint about the same thing. That can be something simple about how do we spend Saturdays? What do we do? Basically, how do we bring up our children? It can be things like that. Just basic things. The first thing I want to say about conflict is, if you are in a long-term relationship, the chances are you will have a conflict, or more than one conflict, or perhaps quite many conflicts. That isn't the problem. The conflicts are not the problem. I don't know if any of you are old enough to have been around people who are celebrating their golden wedding anniversary or their diamond wedding anniversary, and the man or the woman gets up, usually the man gets up and gives a speech, and he says, me and my wife have been together for 40 years or 50 years or 60 years, and we've never had a crossword. I think most of the people there are thinking, what a fibber. You've been married all the time, you've never had a crossword, you've never had a conflict. I don't think most of us buy that, I think most of us realize, just from our own experience, that it's very common to have a conflict within a relationship, particularly a close one, particularly with the people you live with and are most familiar with. The same can be true of friendships, the same can be true of, long-term relationships with people at work. The same conflicts. So the first thing I want to say to you is, don't think that you're alone because you've got a conflict or you've got several conflicts. Don't think you're alone in your relationship. Conflict in relationships is common. It's good to know that, you know. Sometimes you feel it's only me, everybody else is wonderful. And sometimes, you know, when you're having a conflict in your relationship, wherever you go, everybody seems to be wonderfully happy. And probably what you don't realize that they're on a good day and they have conflicts just like you. It's good to know that these things are common to human beings. Conflict is common to human beings. Now here it can be the problem that we don't know how to resolve the conflicts. If you have a conflict and you can't resolve it, then that conflict escalates, gets worse and worse. You get, you know, your relationship gets worse and worse, and then before you know it, there's a big problem. So let's just think of speaking and listening in times of conflict. Do you know, the first thing I want to say to you is conflict often brings pressure. You know, have you ever found yourself saying, I've got to talk about this now? Well, if your pants are on fire and it's a real emergency, well, you probably do, you know, need to say, would you throw a bucket of water over my pants that are on fire? But if they're not, the chances are that you're not under pressure. And the reason I say that is because, put it this way, supposing you come in after a busy day, you've been at work all day, or you've been out all day, or you've been busy around the house all day, and you've got this problem between you and this other person within your home or at work or in your friendships or whatever, and then you come together and you feel, I've got to get this off my chest. Can I say, I don't think that's very wise. If you're busy, you need to stop and you need to rest. The conflict won't go away. So it's like you've got to take this conflict and you've got to put it on the top shelf. When you put it on the top shelf, it doesn't mean you're going to forget about it, that you're not going to talk about it and listen to people talking about it, but you're going to take it down at the right time and in the right place. If you're out of your head with busyness and you feel wretched and all you want to do is sit on the settee with a cup of coffee or tea, then the best thing to do is to take your conflict and put it on the top shelf and leave it there till the time is right and the place is right. Go and have the tea and the coffee. Relax. Because if we're going to resolve the conflict, the condition of our heart and our mind and our feelings when we come to talk about the conflict are absolutely essential. If we're going to resolve the difficulty, we're going to have to be able to talk without aggression, without anger, without blaming. You know, you always do this, you always do that, or you never do that, you never do it. You know, that really, you know, that usually is what comes out of pressure when people talk at the wrong time. So the first thing about conflict, find a time when you and the person you need to speak to or to be listened to by is fairly relaxed. And then in the right time, take down the conflict and now introduce the conflict. And how should you introduce the conflict? Do you know, I don't know about you, but in my life, I think it's true for me to say that many times I haven't a clue how to resolve conflicts. And I suppose my life, I don't know if you're the same as me, perhaps you're better at this than me, but I've had to learn. The way that you talk and listen to each other when you're trying to sort out a conflict will determine how well that conflict is resolved or not. So it doesn't start with blaming, with pointing the finger. It doesn't begin with anger, aggression. It doesn't begin with any of that. That just gets people's backs up, and then the conflict you have becomes worse. So doesn't it take a lot of control, self-control? I don't know about you, but I've had to learn these things. So basically, how do we begin to solve the conflict? I do believe that we need to use a pleasant voice, I think we need to use pleasant words. I think we should come with the understanding that though I have an issue, that I might be wrong. And if I'm not wrong, that there's at least another side to it. There's another viewpoint. You know, selfishness is that I'm right and everybody else is wrong. And if you start like that, well, you'll not resolve any conflict. The only thing that you'll prove is that you're just the dictator and I'm just the dictator that we always were. That doesn't resolve conflicts. Dictators don't resolve conflicts. They just beat people down and silence them, but they don't resolve conflicts. And I'm sure we have this side where we can control ourselves, that we can just calm ourselves down, that we can speak pleasantly and gently to each other, and that we get to a point where we can say what the conflict's about, you know, how we introduce it. You know, you and I have been falling out about this issue for a long time. It would be probably good if we could both talk about it and see how each other feel and see if we can just do something constructive with it and bring it to peace and have a better way of relating to each other. Coming in gently. Do you know, I think we can be at our most selfish when basically we don't come like that. We come differently. Do you know, I think most of us know that love, the easiest part about love is sending a Valentine's Day card. Unless we wrote the words ourselves, somebody else did it for us. We just have to spend whatever we're going to spend, you know, write, all my love and your name, and then just give them the card, buy them the flowers. Do you know, they are relatively easy things to do, aren't they? But it takes a very special person, a very special listening person, a very special empathic person, and a very special talking person to bring about resolution to conflicts. So let me encourage you, particularly when things have bothered you for some time, to try to come to that conflict resolution calmly, pleasantly, kindly. Sometimes we're treating each other like we hate each other. You know, we're being married or we're being in a long-term relationship or we're hoping to be in a long-term relationship, but we don't love each other enough to talk gently, quietly, lovingly, and to listen to one another compassionately. Isn't that the real acid test of love? Rather than the simple things to do, as I say, buying somebody a Valentine's Day card doesn't really cost you very much. A truer test of love is how well you handle conflicts. I want to encourage you in that. You know, in marriages, this is what people say the conflict is usually about. It's usually about money, the kids, or sex. And often, those issues can destroy a relationship. And the main reason that they destroy the relationship is not because there are conflicts in those areas, but it's the people involved cannot talk and listen to each other in the right way to resolve them. I want to encourage us to use this here and now listening service that I've spoken to you about, if that is helpful to you. But ultimately, we all need to learn the art of listening compassionately and talking sensitively to each other. Isn't it good to think that one day we won't need the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the counsellor, the therapist? We don't want a life where we're continually needing the interventions of professionals when, and if we need them in our lives, incidentally, I'm not saying don't go for them. If you're in a state you really need them, then go for them. But what I'm trying to say is the general rule for human beings shouldn't be that. You know, there's a problem in the family. I say to my wife, Where you going? Oh, I'm going to see my therapist. And you know, we've got children in our home, you know, teenagers. What are you up to tonight? And I'm going to see the psychologist. Wouldn't it be, isn't it in the generality of things, isn't it far better to be able to resolve those things within our home relationships, within our marriages, within our work relationships, and in our friendships? You see, there's a maturity in that. So whilst we don't despise professionals at all, and we may need their interventions at times, we cannot basically have a live-in therapist. We cannot live a life dependent on psychologists and counsellors. We have to accrue within ourselves a wisdom to be able to resolve conflicts, things troubling us. We have to develop this wonderful art of listening and speaking. I want to encourage you in these things tonight. I would just say this in closing. Usually in conflicts, the emotions of people, particularly the one who feels offended, there's usually in a conflict situation, there's one who's not happy, the other one is not so bad, but it's usually one person who feels offended, hurt, angry, frustrated, not listened to, not appreciated, and so on and so forth. So can you see that we need to be able to talk about the problems? We're always fighting about the kids. You see it this way and I see it that way. You say I'm too strict. I say you're too soft. And so on and so forth. You see, it takes real maturity to be able to approach these issues in the right way. But you can do it. Let me say this, you can do it. Let me say that to you. We can do this. It takes effort, it takes control, it takes, you know, all the things that I've mentioned, but you can do it. That's the thing. Don't think, I can't do this. Yes, you can. It may cost you a bit of selfishness. If we speak a lot, it may cost us zipping up and listening more. But we can do this. And so I encourage you very, very much just to think about how you would do it. Do you know, when I was at college years ago, there was a guy there, and he said, you know, if you're not doing very well with your wife or your girlfriend or whoever, you know, what you should do is you should sit on the mat together, facing each other, eye to eye. You should look into her eyes, she should look into your eyes, and you shouldn't look down. I tell you what, my wife and I burst out laughing, because as soon as I said, we can't look down, the first thing she did was look down. And it's you know, but just, I don't mean, you know, I don't mean stare out eyeball to eyeball, or stare him out eyeball to eyeball. I mean, just look lovingly at the person. And apparently when you look into a person's eyes in an informal way, like sitting on the carpet instead of in the chairs, apparently it disposes you to speak honestly. And the person who is usually not being honest looks down. Well, as I say, we had a good laugh, and you want to try it if you want, and you probably have a good laugh. But I tell you what it did do. Sometimes we stop looking at each other. It's a very intimate thing to look into a person's eyes, and the eyes of a person you love. It's very intimate, isn't it, really, when you think about it? I mean, we don't, if this person isn't particularly close to us, we don't tend to go around looking into their eyes. They would think, oh, this isn't right, what's happening here? But to someone you love, your children included, just look into their eyes, because there's an engagement there. And when you then begin to speak, I believe the words become pleasant and kind. And just before we speak or we listen, you know, just that contact, that eye contact, can remind us of things that we've forgotten. This man, I've been with him so long, this woman, goodness me, I've been with her so long, and I love her, and I love him. Basic, simple things. Do you know, any psychologist will tell you that you and I have very simple needs. There's a guy called Maslow, if you want to look him up. He's got this hierarchy of human needs. And you know the two, here are the needs. One, you must be warm, so you need clothing and you need shelter. Two, you need to hydrate, you need to drink, you need to have liquids to drink. Three, you need to have food, obviously, for your body to grow. But the last two of that five are very, very simple, and sometimes we've forgotten that they're the most important, and these are there. One is your need to be loved. You need to be loved. I need to be loved. We all need to be loved. The hardest man in Gateshead tonight needs to be loved. The hardest woman in Newcastle needs to be loved. But they also need to love. To be loved and to love someone else. So when we remember these things and we bring this aspect of love into our conflict resolutions, then it is that we can really begin to resolve our issues, whatever they may be. If you have issues with your teenagers, you know, we all have issues with our teenagers. I don't know about you, when I was a teenager, my parents had issues with me all over the place and many times. But the way to resolve it is not with shouting our heads off. It's not, I'm going to tell you how it's going to be, and you've just got to listen and shut up, and I'm older than you and I know better than you. None of that. That's not going to get us anywhere. We have to go into that relationship and just take a moment to look at them and to be as prepared to listen as to speak. Can I say to you, sometimes our teenagers, our children are right and we are wrong. If you're as old as me, or at least you're older, how many times when you were a teenager did you know within your heart that your mum was wrong, that your dad was wrong? I mean, you kind of went along with what they said, but you knew deep down that they're not right. They're not right in this, they're wrong. And I think we should be humble enough to recognize that. So when we're trying to talk to our children, even children, young children, they have a point of view. People who are skillful in the art of listening and speaking gently, they realize that everybody's got a point of view. You could be 90% right, and they might only be 10% right, but even so, they have 10%. And a wise person will let them, speak their 10% and listen. Then we have this beautiful thing called understanding. That we understand. Okay, this behavior is not right, but I understand why. I would like our relationship to be like this. It's not like this, but having spoken to you, I understand. I've listened to you and I understand why. But I've understood you and listened to you and you've listened to me. Can we now find a way, a middle way, that makes you happy and me happy? I know I can't have all my own way. None of us can. So, but both of us can have something of our own way in this. And that way, conflicts are resolved. Not only is the conflict resolved, you've begun to learn an art of resolving things that is destroying relationships all over this area, this nation, and this world. And so it is a real investment in the quality of your relationships, the quality of your life, the quality of our community, our nation, and our world. So thank you for listening patiently. I just want to close with this. So just in conclusion, sometimes we're not doing very well with conflict resolution. We may have tried it and just blown each other out of the water, as they say, because we haven't learned the basics. So there are times in your life when you feel, I've got to talk, I need someone to listen to me, I'm feeling dreadful, I feel hopeless, and I need somebody to talk to me now. This service, this Here and Now service that we base in Dunstan Activity Centre is for you. So basically, how can you access that service? Well, you can telephone me if you want on 0191 460 4567. My life's very busy. If I'm not there to answer the phone, leave me a message and just a contact number, and I'll get back to you, and we can have a telephone conversation if you want. Or you can email me on ed.nichols, Nichols, @live.com, and then just tell me what's in your heart, and we'll see if we can do it by email. If you want to do it another way, FaceTime or Zoom, then we can set that up. All we need is to know your contact details. Or if you want a face-to-face, even in COVID-19 times, we can wear a mask, socially distance, sanitize, and etc., and have that conversation. If you want a conversation with a woman rather than a man, then we can set that up. It's sometimes better if it's a woman, that there's at least, if it's a man listening, that there's a woman there too, and similarly with a man, of course. So it's very safe. There's nothing threatening about the whole thing. So if you need that and you feel, at this minute in time, I just don't have anybody to listen and I really need to talk, please use the service. But tonight I've been suggesting to you that eventually let us all look to being able to be good listeners, to have our own Here and Now service within our homes, our workplaces, in our friendships, and in our communities. Wouldn't it be lovely? You just pop in somewhere for a coffee. We have a nice coffee sort of an area in the activity centre. It's like a concourse cafe. It's very pleasant, I think. Very pleasant views onto a courtyard with trees and things. I think it's always lovely when I see people sitting and talking. Talking and listening to each other is a real sign of caring, of community. And basically, wherever we go, isn't it nice to think that people have learned the art of listening to us, as well as speaking, and that, that we can just share our problems. Most of what makes people unhappy, deeply unhappy, is that they feel alone. That there's nobody I can talk to. There's nobody who will listen to me. I've tried it, people say, I've tried it. There's just nobody, they just don't listen. And so the more that we learn the art of listening, of understanding when a person needs to be listened to, then the more our lives will be enriched. And I say again to you, people who have learned the art of listening compassionately are very, very special people. May your home, may your workplaces, may our friendships, may our community be filled with people who have learned this art. I thank you very much for listening tonight, and I wish you a very good evening. And let's begin, shall we, to learn how to resolve our conflicts. A very good evening to you.